I call the Assembly Committee of the Whole work session to order. It's April 24th, 2025 at 12 p.m. Ms. Edmondson, would you read the land acknowledgement, please?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We would like to acknowledge the City and Borough of Juneau is on Tlingit land and wish to honor the Indigenous people of this land. For more than 10,000 years, Alaska Native people have been and continue to be integral to the well-being of our community. We are grateful to be in this place, a part of this community, and to honor the culture, traditions, and resilience of the Tlingit people. Gunashchish.
Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, note the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For noting the roll, we do not have Ms. Wall, Ms. Hughes-Scandies, and Mr. Bryson will be joining us as soon as he's available.
Very good. Thank you.
Everyone else is present, and we have a quorum present. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We see our agenda topics for the day. Just to start, I just wanted to welcome representatives from the CLIAA cruise lines to the Assembly today. We know that tourism has impacts on our community, both positive and negative at times. But the only way to move us forward in a productive way is to have conversations, and it's important to have these conversations out in the open. So thank you for being here today and having these conversations with us. However, for meetings of this type of magnitude, I am going to pass the gavel to our mayor, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Appreciate that. But before we go any further, let's do some introductions. So on the Assembly side, please introduce yourself briefly, just to make sure they understand our names, and then we'll go to the cruise lines. But before we go there, we'll give them a little bit more things to say. So Ms. Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Briefly, I'm Ella Atkinson. I've been on the Assembly for about 1.5 years now.
I'm Neil Steinger. I've been on the Assembly since October.
Maureen Hall, also on the Assembly since October.
Paul Kelly, I've been on the Assembly for about 1.5 years.
Greg Smith, going into my 6th year on the Assembly, honored to be our Deputy Mayor for the Assembly. And I know that Ms. Wall and Ms. Hughes-Scandies wanted to be here, but due to previously scheduled work and travel, we're not unable to make it, but they regret not being able to be here. So.
Yes, and Mr. Bryson will be joining us shortly. So I'm Mayor Weldon. I've been mayor for 6 years and on the Assembly 2 years before that. So most of you have seen me once or twice. Before we get started with introductions from the cruise lines, just a couple of things. We have started our season, and a few ships at the time in April, and we'll get full force going here in May. So I'm sure the store owners and tourism operators are excited about that. As we know, Mendenhall Glacier is operating on reduced hours, and tour operators are stepping up to help, so we appreciate everybody trying to help there. We have not made our decision on funding yet. We will address that on our May 19th regular Assembly meeting, and for those who don't know it, we're looking at using $200,000 of marine passenger fees to help out there. Not to shore up the federal government, but to lessen the impacts elsewhere of the tourists, because if they're not going to the glacier, they're going to be elsewhere in the community. We have received CLIAA's email about not objecting to our preliminary marine passenger fee list, so we appreciate that. We try to do the best we can to make that fair to all concerns, and that part of the budget will be out for public review for those in the public, and will be discussed by the Assembly Finance Committee on May 7th. So we continue to look forward to collaboration with our agreements. And as you may or may not know, we are looking at rebooting the Visitor Industry Task Force in the fall. So, and some of you in this room are going to be on that, but I won't call you out yet. So with that, we will go to the cruise lines. And what we're looking from you is just kind of who you are, what your lines are doing. And another topic that will start a discussion is what are you doing to help lessen the impacts? And since I talked to Ms. Weir earlier, I'll start with her. And I should say you have 5 minutes each. Apologize for that.
5 minutes. I will not use it all. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the City Manager and Tourism Director and the Assembly for being here today. We really appreciate the invitation, and we really appreciate the collaboration with all of you. And as most of you know, we've been on a little bit of a tour of the Southeast, visiting Skagway, and Haynes came to Skagway, and we were in Ketchikan yesterday at the borough and the city. And just all of these conversations are so important to us, and doing things not only at each of the destinations that we visit, but also at a regional level, because a lot of conversations are regional too. And I just want to point out things that we're doing today, and that directly affect Juneau. I'm happy to report for 2026, we've developed a solution for hot berthing. And I know that that was a really critical issue for Norwegian Cruise Line, because on Tuesdays we were hot berthing with the Bliss and the Encore, and we needed to change that. And thank you, a huge thank you to Alex for joining me on this journey to figure out what we could do, because it was really a solution that we needed to do with our port agents, with the different communities, and alongside the cruise lines all working together. And it's that collaboration again that allowed us to fix Tuesdays. And happy to report in 2026, you will only see one ship at AJ, and then we'll be moving around and using one of the other docks on Tuesdays. So thanks to all of you for that. Also, just in what we're doing different 2026, and I'll talk about this now because it's very relevant, you will not see us as early. You will not see the Norwegian Bliss in mid-April. You will see her at the very end of April. I'm going to say that we cut off at least 2 weeks of our preseason and 3 weeks of our postseason. And that was really also with conversations with the community that we were coming a little bit too early, although our guests love it. They love to see the snow-capped mountains. They love the cold weather. The ship is very full, but we made a conscious decision to move that around. And again, communication. I take these communications to the corporate office, and we do, it sometimes takes a cycle or two to change things, but happy to report that will change in 2026 as well. And lastly, I just want to express our true appreciation to all of you with the recent decisions that you have made with Auk Landing. That was important to us too. We really truly believe that our work with Huna Totem, the work in Auk Landing, will shift some of the downtown dynamics and do a disbursement of guests and visitors. And we thank you for trusting us with that, and that we can soon start our negotiations and move forward with that project. So here today with the other lines, and just to thank you, all of you, for what you're doing for us and the passion that you all show for cruise as well as us, and this continued solutions that we'll work towards.
Thank you. We'll jump over to Mr. Morgenstern. Can we do anything, Madam Clerk? Okay, well, that also brings an echo, so we will try to talk closer to the microphone. Okay, we'll go to you, Mr. Morgenstern.
Okay, how's that? Sound good? All right, very good. Hopefully not too loud for you up front. So thank you for the opportunity, and it's really great to be here. As Sandy mentioned, we've been on a bit of a road show, and happy to say we were able to successfully arrive here. A little bit less drama than getting to Ketchikan, where we flew 3 times before we were able to land. But anyways, that's life in Southeast. So I represent the Carnival brands that operate in the Alaska market. And so just for everybody in the room's education, that includes Princess Cruises, Holland America, Carnival Cruise Line, which gets a little confusing with the corporation name, Cunard Cruise Line, and Seabourn, which some of you may know actually turns ships here in Juneau, which is a bit unusual. In our portfolio, we also have HAP, which is our ground operator, and you see our motor coaches and our team around here in town. We operate in most of the Southeast communities, as well as up in the interior of Alaska, where we also have a portfolio of 8 hotels and a couple of other trains, and for our guests who do multi-day land tours. So those ships that serve that market across the Gulf also do come through Juneau here, but they are part of a fleet that really delivers guests to a totally different part of Alaska and sort of dispersion at a more macro level. So for this coming season, we're quite excited. Demand for Alaska remains to be very strong among consumers, even with all of the national news and things that are going on in the economy from day to day. And Alaska is always a more durable destination than some of the others. And so we're very excited about how things are shaping up for the season. A couple of things that I wanted to share. Number one is more kind of on a local level. Our HAP team is working along with Alex and the city to try to do whatever we can to be a partner out at Mendenhall. So we've sent supplemental staff out there. We've actually been sending them out there in prior years to help with turning motor coaches around and some of the logistics. And so we dedicated some extra heads out there to try to help manage passengers given the staffing shortages. Also happy to share that emissions have long been a concern of ours in Juneau and a concern of the community. Obviously, we've had shore power for many years. I think you're all acutely aware of that message because we remind everybody every chance we can. But what is lesser known is that we're actually using biofuel in our motor coach fleet here now. And so we've been sourcing biofuel and running a blend in our motor coaches. And very proud to share that we'll also be doing a biofuel demonstration test with one of our ships this summer. And so we've been working on that along with the Port of Seattle, where we're trying to figure out how to get this fuel. And we'll have more information to share once we nail down those dates. But right now, the projected timeline will be early in the season, latter part of May, early part of June. Those days may slip depending on our fuel supplier's ability to find the fuel. So it'll be an exciting project. And the purpose of doing the biofuel demonstration is to really, and we call it a demonstration, is to really to help policymakers and others in the broader regulatory sphere understand what must be true in order for some of these longer term fuel change, greenhouse gas changes, for them to occur, what must be true. So something we're excited about. Other than that, just again, thank you, Beer, and look forward to the questions and discussion.
All right, thank you for that, but you actually didn't say your name. So could you say your name for the record and the audience?
I think I know most everybody, but yeah, so Robert Morgenstern, and it says HA Group, but technically it's really Carnival Corporation, so.
All right, thank you for that.
You bet.
Mr. Benford.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the Assembly, staff, as manager. Really happy to be here today. I am Russell Benford, Vice President of Government Relations for the Royal Caribbean Group. The Royal Caribbean Group, we have three distinct brands that call Southeast Alaska and Juneau. We are Royal Caribbean, the Crown and Anchor. I think everyone's familiar with those ships. We're also Celebrity Cruises, and Silversea Cruise is the boutique brand that calls Juneau. We've called here for quite some time. Our guests absolutely love coming to Juneau. We have recently been very much engaged, as Robert talked about, on the Mendenhall issue. I think in terms of a guest feedback standpoint, we've received a lot of phone calls in the last few months as people are aware of some of the layoffs at the federal level. I'm happy to say that we have received the positive input, the advocacy from the city and borough, our partners as well. And so we're feeling a little bit better every single day, but we're trying our best to just keep our guests informed of what's going on. And I think, Mayor, to your earlier point, you mentioned maybe some of the unintended consequences of maybe staffing shortages at the glacier. I think as you and your team, Alex, if you anticipate that more folks may end up in town, if there's anything that we can do at Royal Caribbean Group to help you disperse people, move traffic, deal with some of those impacts, we're most certainly happy to do that. I think at Royal Caribbean Group, our focus, has for years been sort of the economic impact. We really value our partnerships with entrepreneurs, small business owners, and NGOs, nonprofit organizations within, the city and borough. We do have, some of the existing partnerships have really focused on authentic, Alaskan souvenirs. And so some of the groups have visited Royal Caribbean Group in off-season and have done so in the last couple months. We're happy to continue those partnerships and just very excited about, this upcoming season as our ships will be here very soon and look forward to working with you moving forward. I did, Mayor, just want to thank, Alex and Katie. I think one of the things I'm very happy about is I think our communication is more frequent than it has been in the past. I think it's a little bit deeper and impactful, and we've really tried to be the best partner that we can. And I think staff has done a lot to encourage that, Mayor, yourself as well. And we just look forward to a long and mutually beneficial relationship here as things continue to evolve. The most important thing, I think, for us at Royal Caribbean is communication. And so I would be remiss if I didn't thank you all for just the opportunity to provide feedback on issues as they arise here in Juneau. And I think all of us, just being able to have a voice is important to us all. Regardless of the outcome and the decision that you make, we all respect that, but we certainly do just appreciate being a part of the dialogue early on. And I think you've seen that with some of the funding allocations this year from the uses of fees. We started that discussion a very long time ago. I think the city and boroughs, the staff has been very transparent, not only with the list, but the importance of funding projects that are important to the community, and we're happy to be a part of that. So just on behalf of all of us, I just want to say thank you for your time, thank you for the invitation, and look forward to the meeting this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benford, and I apologize. I'm going to probably slaughter your name. I'm guessing it's Steegi or Steegi or... Go ahead, and just so you
Thank
know,
you.
they've all been under 4 minutes, so.
So my name is Jon Olav Stedje.
Stedja.
Yeah, and I work globally with community engagement and sustainability for MSC Cruises. As you know, we are the new kid in town. We will not start our sailings in Alaska until next year in 2026. So the reason I'm here is to learn and to listen and to meet people and to show my face. So if we do something wrong in 2026, you know who to blame, and you can contact me. So that's good. My background, I come from Norway. I have been working for a cruise port in the Norwegian fjords since 2015. And when I started working at that cruise port in Norway, cruise was not particularly popular. We had hayballs with no cruise ships welcome, and we have a lot of signs in the gardens with cruise ship was not a particularly good thing for the communities. And also politically, it was not very popular. But we managed to turn that a bit around by welcoming our citizens into the ships and to be more open and more transparent towards our local community. So mayor, deputy mayor, city manager, a visitor industry director, and their assembly, thank you for having me here today. I'm very grateful for that. And MSC is, I like to say that we are a bit different than the others. We started, the whole MSC adventure started in the 1970s by a captain called Aponte. He was a captain on a ship, and he decided to, okay, let's see if we can make some business. So he bought one vessel, and it all started to go quite well for Mr. Aponte. And today he owns the biggest container vessel company in the world, and a lot of other things as well. And he has a cruise line, which is the MSC Cruises, but also a luxury brand called Explora, which also will come and visit here in Alaska in a couple of years. And by that, it's a family company. It means that often decision is made by the heart and not necessarily by money. So the family itself is very willing to invest and very willing to develop. And yeah, sustainability is in the key of everything we do. Yeah, I hope you have a lot of questions. As I've said, I'm here to learn and to take that back to the office. And it's very important for me that we have a good and open dialogue, good communication. And yeah, we are a guest, so communication is important. Thank you.
All right, I appreciate that. So I've had the luxury of, other than Ms. Husted, meeting with all of you, and of course, Ms. Pierce and Ms. Kester meet with you all the time, but this is the first time you've got to meet several members of the Assembly, and it's one of the first times that we will be out in the public, which we hope to do that more often than not. So that's kind of the purpose of this meeting. I know several of you have questions and concerns, and Mr. Smith had a long laundry list I saw, so we will start with him to ask the first question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I should cover my iPad from you more often. I guess, one general kind of question I had is just, obviously guests come in and, we can only do so much for folks, but I do hear from the community about, people littering or not following, not doing the crosswalks or just, these little kind of pain points and annoyances that can just bother residences. I mean, I think there's other things too, just general respect things. Obviously, you can't fix everything with people. I'm just kind of curious, what types of things are you doing on board to, inform your guests and clients about, just respect and, local customs and those type of things that just can cause points of tension.
Does anybody want to address that, or is that just notes for future thoughts on what to do on board? So, do you guys have any rules of the road when you dock in a port and to say, be kind to the neighbors?
I'll jump in. Yeah, so well before the ships come to Alaska, there's a couple of things that we do. So we meet with all of the ships in a pre-Alaska meeting and go over really a variety of policy and procedure issues for all of the ports in Southeast. And among that is a number of the items that were codified in MOA 1 and really grew out of the TBMP, Tourism Best Management Practices program, which was started here in Juneau. And so it's, things like video screens and public announcements and that kind of stuff. So a lot of that is really aimed at the ship operators, right? Reminding them of here's how we're a good neighbor in Juneau and here's how we're a good neighbor in Ketchikan and so forth. And then more specifically to sort of guest guidance then trickles down to there are some notices in our kind of daily activity sheet that guests get that talk about, litter and things, being a good neighbor, that kind of stuff. So when things pop up, like bears, for example, in downtown Juneau, we usually get an outreach from the city and we'll issue sort of a reminder memo out to the ships. They might do a cabin drop, which is a notice that specifically goes to guests in the cabins. Beware, or please don't feed bears or do other crazy things, so forth. So, so we do, I think, the best we can to try to notify guests, but people are people, and so some of that is just the nature of tourists that are in a town. They're thinking about all kinds of other things, and maybe not always using the most common sense when they step out into the street with a camera in their hand or what have you. So.
Okay, just be advised that it's your softball question. They'll get harder as time goes
Yeah.
on. So,
Well, let me go in.
My work is done here. Thank you.
Ms. Weir, go ahead and take a softball.
I'll take a softball too. No, I just want to sort of the same thing as Robert had just said. We have preseason meetings, which are very critical, and we have preseason meetings at the officer level of those that are operating the ship, so they know the operating requirements and the emissions dialogue and everything else. And then we have for our crew members, just the general hotel staff, what they need to expect. And we also don't have a big change in our senior leadership from season to season on these ships. You'll see the same people. It's two things. It's their love of Alaska. They don't love to be removed from the ships that they're on because they just love it here. And the second thing is we love the repetitiveness and that they already know how they should act and react in Alaska. And we find that tenure that they have here is irreplaceable, just to get to know everything about the state and this itinerary. I am going to add too that on the guest side, we have a sea day before we reach Alaska, either coming from Vancouver or coming from Seattle, and we do a huge presentation called This is Alaska. It's a great film that we have, and every year we add a few components to it. This year was, we've added some really great content on film about Glacier Bay and about the Alaskan culture and the different native cultures here. And if we have anything from a tourism perspective that we'd like to add to that, happy to do that. We just need, I don't think we want to build our own content from Alaska, but if there's anything that we can have, we're happy to add it to that day. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no hands racing up, I'll ask Ms. Wall's question because she couldn't be here today. And I'm glad to hear you talked about biofuels for your buses, because that's kind of what her questions are. Where are you on the development of new fuels for your cruise ships? And what are we doing about scrubbers and those kind of things? Because those are a lot in the news right now. And we're just going to go quickly down the group. So we'll start with you, Mr. Williamson.
That's a tough topic to go quick on. But so fuel transition is a huge issue for not only our industry, really all of shipping. In the case of the cruise industry, they've pledged to get to carbon neutral by 2050. So if you start from where we are today to get there, it's obviously a lot of work that needs to be done. And ultimately, the only way you can get there is through development of fuels that don't today exist. And so there are some transition fuels, biofuels and LNG are the two that are actually available. And so you see a lot of that development with the lines on, particularly in LNG ships, but even biofuel is not really scalable across all of shipping and other segments of industry. So a big discussion in shipping is really what is the fuel of the future, and with passenger shipping, there's even further limitations. For example, ammonia, which works well for cargo, doesn't work well for cruise, because if you have a leak, you kill everybody. So that's obviously not a good idea. And to make something like methanol, as an example, available at scale really requires an entire supply chain to be created that today doesn't exist. So one of the things that all of our lines are engaged in this particular region is the Pacific Northwest to Alaska Green Corridor. And this is precisely the issue that the Green Corridor is really exists around, is to try to figure out what would a pathway to decarbonization look like with the context of this specific region in mind, and are undertaking a study which should be published sometime late this summer on looking at methanol in the Pacific Northwest region. So that's one among many efforts that are going on globally. Europe is much further ahead in sort of pushing the frontiers on fuel and kind of the economics that are required to make that pathway viable. But Alaska can be proud that through the Green Corridor, there is an actual specific effort in this region that's underway. So it's a fascinating challenge, but one that is there's no quick solution for. So.
Thank you, Mr. Bedford.
Thank you, Mayor. To echo Robert's comments, I think Royal Caribbean Group was the first mover with respect to the Seattle Green Corridor project, and I know different destination partners have different sort of views and points of input into that work, but we're happy to be one of the first signers. Similar to Robert's comments, we've We've used biofuels in the Pacific Northwest and in this region in the past. We do have ships in the region that have LNG, understanding that it is a transitional fuel. I think a lot of the work is really just supporting, the greater fuel industry and as it researches what the final fuel may be. But we're certainly, on the cutting edge of that. I think in recent years, Royal has invested in leaders who specialize in green fuels, throughout the world for shipping. So we have leaders on board now who that is sort of what their task is every single day. We've had, summits that we've hosted on this topic on board our ships. So we brought leaders from around the world to really talk about advances in clean fuels and green fuels for the shipping industry. And, so the work continues, understanding that LNG, is a transition, fuel and biofuels. Again, the experiments, the tests we've done have gone really well. I think scaling is an issue across the planet. And I think you also had a question about scrubbers, and, we follow federal maritime law. We operate closed loop scrubbers and don't discharge here. And so we follow the guidelines with respect to that for our ships that do call in Southeast Alaska. So we just continue the work, and we're very hopeful that collectively we can all, sort of advance our work even faster as it relates to, identifying the future fuel for the cruise industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Weir.
All right, a lot has been said already, so I'm going to try not to repeat, but we're all working on fuel development, and I find that there's a large amount of collaboration right now between the lines because we have to find one solution for a maritime sustainable fuel. So in Europe, in North America, we are all working together under CLIAA to arrive at that solution. And of course, we do have green corridor in this area. But also we're doing biofuel testing. So we have a percentage of our itineraries that every year test a certain part of the itinerary on biofuels where it's available, and then just watch all of our engine performance and ship performance while we have biofuels. And I want to add too that 40% of the fuel usage goes to propulsion of the ship, and 60% goes to the hotel load. So how do we cut our GHG emissions? Right now, without having the fuel of the future, we work on that hotel load. How do we reduce that? It's through LED lighting, it's through more efficient faucets on the ship, it's through more efficient ways of running our laundry system at a different time when people are off the ship. It's all these little tiny things and that we do to make sure that we cut the load as low as possible at whatever peak times we can to reduce the fuel that we use. So that will go a long way to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. As far as scrubbers, just to add, we run on the Norwegian fleet, and this is Norwegian Cruise Line. I'll talk about the other ones in a second. We run hybrid scrubbers, so they can be open loop or closed loop, depending on where we're sailing. Here we do have the MOA. We make sure that about 2 hours for our larger ships before we enter Juneau, we have turned off our scrubbers and we're starting to run on marine gas oil. And only when we leave Juneau, completely out of the channel, that's when we may or may not turn it back on. It just depends where we're going next. I think, and I do want to say there is a lot of new technologies as well that are coming in to reduce the hotel load. There's a lot of efficient systems that we can, whenever we renovate our ships or dry dock our ships, we bring those new technologies on board. So the Bliss recently had a dry dock off season in January, and she probably, and I should know what new technology, but she's brought new technologies with her again to reduce your fuel consumption.
Thank you. Mr. Stedja.
Thank you. A lot have been said already, and at MSC we focus on 3 different segments for our pathway towards net zero in 2050. We have the design and technology to reduce our fuel consumption, and also how we operate, to operate in a best manner to reduce the fuel, and also how to look into new types of fuel in the future. Our current pathway towards net zero is LNG, because it's been mentioned over here, it's a transition fuel, but it's also a fuel in transition. So you have the first period where you have the LNG, and then you will get bio-LNG, and in the end you will get synthetic or e-LNG. And we are quite on a good place on that path. In 2023, we made our first net zero cruise voyage between Saint-Nazaire in France and to Copenhagen, where we actually was net zero. We sailed on biofuels, biogas on the way up, and we used 400 metric tons of biogas on that journey. We focus a lot, and also the family I mentioned, they want to be on top of the situation, so they spend a lot of time in investing in the future, investing in the new fuels. We're cooperating with Wärtsilä as our engine producer, and we will not have a normal combustion engine in our ships anymore. Everything will be dual fuels that can run on MGO, but also on LNG. And so that is sort of our promise, that our transition goes towards LNG. And of course, for us, it's also with the communities we visit, we want to be a benefit for you guys. We want to have the social impact, the positive social impact, and also the positive economic impact. So I'm very happy I'm here. Deputy Mayor, thank you for talking about how you want guests to behave when they are here. That is something I can take back and say, okay, we need to prepare that. Our guest is normally preparing quite well, but of course it's nice to give them a bit of a pointer how they should behave in the places they visit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, and also thanks to Ms. Wall for an excellent question. That was going to be my first question if it hadn't been asked before, so I appreciate that. My second question was going to kind of relate to the situation we have in the Mendenhall Visitor Center and the arrangement that's been proposed and that the Assembly will be considering next month. Mr. Bedford mentioned that you'd received positive responses from local government and possibly others. I'm kind of wondering, as we kind of think about going into the future, and I think this visitor center was staffed by something like 36 people in the past, and now it's running on a skeleton crew of five staff plus a lot of community support. Have you been able to have any talks on the federal level, perhaps in lobbying the administration to have like a more of a stable situation at our visitor center? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, not on the federal level. We've monitored the reports, here from Juneau, and sort of heard certainly from you all, sort of that you're aware of it, and additional resources have been deployed. So certainly, if we can do anything to help on that regard, whether it's communication to our guests, anything that we can help to support here at the local level, we'd be more than happy to do that. As I understand it, the situation is still evolving a bit, and so we don't ultimately know where we're going to land there. But we are more than willing to lend a hand here, just making sure our guests can, as I understand it, safely, visit the Mendenhall Glacier. We'd be, happy to do that. But we have not had direct discussions with the federal government regarding Mendenhall Glacier staffing levels.
Thank you.
Would you mind if we threw it over to Renee for a minute? Because I believe she's going to DC next week.
Ms. Limoges-Reeve.
Yes, thank you. There have been conversations with the federal delegation. Alex and I participated in a couple of them. I know that one of our member lines has been, and maybe Robert, you want to speak to that. I know that your team has been engaged with the federal delegation as well. And I will be in DC next week. It is something that we frequently speak to them about. It's hugely important. We understand that it's a big part of why people love the community so much. So many people want to go to the glacier, and we know that there will obviously be ripple effects if they're not able to be there. If the volume that it normally sees is not able to travel out there, there will be ripple effects that we would all love to avoid, both for you as a community, for us as an industry. So those efforts are ongoing and won't stop. But Robert may want to add too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Renee. We did make a trip down to DC a little over a month ago and met with both senators and Representative Begich offices, and really around all of the federal park experiences. So it was inclusive of the national park as well as Mendenhall. And we're able to really provide very specific concerns. So not just because I think, you know, with all the changes going on at the federal level, there's sort of a lot of noise, but trying to cut through that and give, like, here's specifically the issue that we need to address. And all three offices were very receptive and thankful for that, and have been in contact with them since. So it's a big priority for us for sure.
Thank you, Ms. Adkisson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since we asked questions of a specific line, I did have a question for you, Mr. Benford. You mentioned in your intro talking about open communication back and forth with the city and how vital that is for, you know, that continuing relationship. And you mentioned, you know, how excellent our staff have been with Manager Kester and Director Pierce, you know, reaching out and opportunities to comment on our marine passenger fee budget, which is excellent, but is all city reaching out to the lines? So I guess my question would be, the feeling in our community has very much been that that is not a reciprocal relationship. And have conversations been had on Royal's side on improving that outreach to the city in return in the future?
I'm going to jump in there first too, because we see clearing of land out the tip of North Douglas, which has freaked everybody out, and we're hearing surveys of docks are done, and so far we've heard nothing from you guys. So you want to talk to that?
Certainly, I think as it relates to your question, I made it a priority to make sure that I'm here. I think as it relates to communicating with staff, I've tried to, and I mentioned it's improved. I wasn't implying that it was only Juneau that has made that. I think it's both of us that need to work on communication. So I tried to be as in communication with staff as I possibly can. I mean, I think we all sort of understand, what's going on here in Juneau. We hear from the community. We all listen and take that seriously. And so I think it's a work in progress. I mean, certainly if there are specific issues that we, would like to address, or that Juneau would like to address, or if there are specific things that we can do or I can do to improve communication between Royal Caribbean Group and the city and staff, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to take that back. I'm happy to be here, or Teams or telephone calls as much as I possibly can, just to make sure that, I'm available and I'm listening and being able to translate that back to leadership about your concerns.
Okay, and sorry, Mr. Benford, I'm going to push on that harder. I don't expect a response. We are telling you right now, we are hearing they are designing docks out of the tip of North Douglas, and none of the city staff or the assembly members have been included in those conversations. So bring that back to your line and say, we still need to work on communication. With that, Mr. Smith.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Similar vein, but I'm actually going to see if there's a response. What are you able to share with us about the plans for docks at North Douglas, and when are you planning on engaging with the city or the community on those plans?
I will say this, that, as it relates to any developer, here within the city of Juneau who is developing any potential site, I think that communication is really between the developer and the city and city leadership. And so I don't want to speak for, I'm not able to speak for the developer, but I can tell you that would be, my response to you, is that I don't know it's really on us to speak for them. I certainly think if they're local, they're here, to the extent that they're available, we have no issues with the communication, but I think that's between the two principals, being the city and the developer and the landowner who probably should, that's where the conversation I think should happen, in my opinion.
It's not the answer we're looking for. All right. Seeing none, I will ask Ms. Lisa Scandy's question, because she was physically in a flight right now. So she said, good on negotiation, yay on the 5 ships a day, yay on the daily passenger limits, but for the second year in a row, we're going to have a ballot initiative potentially. So thank you for doing what you're doing, but you're obviously not doing enough. What more can each of your line do to help promote goodwill within the community? And she specifically said, looking at community needs, and she specifically said the Civic Center. So I'm just going to start, well, I started with you, Mr. Morganson, last time, so I'm not going to start with you. I'll start the other way. Sorry, Mr. Stedya, you wanted to be in this job? Hop in.
Can you please?
I'll give a little bit more thing. So we had a ballot initiative last year that did not pass. And this year we have another one coming out, which tells us that there's still a lot of tension in the community. So, so the impacts are still felt within the community. Granted, it didn't pass, and you know, a lot of people are very supportive of the tourist industry, but what are we doing? So all of the stuff you're doing, all the good work you're doing, and I know you're doing quite a bit of good work, and thank you for those lines that helped during the flood time, but it's obviously still not enough. So what can you guys do more to help promote goodwill and hopefully not have ballot initiatives keep coming out? This is from Ms. Hughes-Scandy, so Mr. Smith, you can tell her that I asked her question.
Okay, I will start this. Maybe my colleagues do not agree in this, but I think they do, sort of. The thing that the cruise industry haven't been good enough to do is communicate. And we haven't been good enough to involve in the destinations we are visiting. And we haven't been good enough to talk with the communities we're visiting. I think my colleagues do agree. And when we are being met with criticism, our way of dealing with that is mostly to hide and let other people do our defense. And I think we see a change now in the industry, that cruise lines are more on the ball. They are more where action is needed. They are there to inform the destinations they are visiting, and they are much more easier to reach now than 5 years ago, in my opinion. And then I think the things that happened then is that things ran a bit out of control, and the information that was given around the world was a bit false. It was because the cruise lines was not there to provide with the exact information and the necessary information. And I totally understand. I come from a little small place along the Norwegian fjord, and people there, they believe that, yeah, we don't spend money when we visit. We put the sewage in the fjord. We burn the dirtiest fuel ever when we go to places. And that false truth has sort of been able to develop because the cruise industry hasn't been there to say, okay, it's not actually like that. So the most important thing for us as a cruise industry, sorry, I'm speaking on behalf of everybody, but we need to be on the spot. We need to listen, we need to understand, and we need to respect. And then we can all go together towards the mutual goal, which is ahead somewhere. Did that answer your question?
That was pretty good for a rookie. I won't tell you how you're going to do all those, but Ms. Weir is going to tell us how she's going to do all those.
Oh, tough questions. You know, I think that if I look at, since the time I've been involved in this itinerary since 2018, I think that we have made good strides forward, not great, but good. And I think we need to continue them, and we need to continue to really listen to what the community needs are. And there's always those things that we don't know that are slowly simmering out there. and then they rise up to a ballot initiative. And I think we're doing things right. We are collaborating with the assembly and the communities and those that support us here with the three MOAs that we have. And there's I'm going to take our example. We did listen and shorten our season. I know it took a little while, and I so appreciate all of your patience while we did that. But we did shorten our season because we were coming in too early, staying too late. But those are conversations that we need to continue, and we need to find different ways and solutions to support the community. And I don't have an answer sitting here today, but I'm going to be honest with you and say we want the conversations to continue, and we have to start being more creative. I think we hit the easy ones, and the next level is going to be harder. So just keep coming at us. We'll keep talking to you, and together we're a lot of smart people. We'll come up with solutions that are best for the community and best for the residents.
Thank you for that. And could you remind Mr. Benford how long we worked with Northern Cruise Lines on their dock before they did anything?
I think it was 6 years.
Thank you for that. Mr. Benford.
Hi, Mayor.
Hello. Trying to be as gentle as possible, but
I appreciate that. I do. I'll start by to answer your question. I really do feel like, as it related to the process with the use of funds this year, I felt like we got to a point probably that you didn't see and Alex didn't see. I think even before we responded to the requests, through Renee, we had quite a few conversations really about what our role is in that, and certainly acknowledging that these are community funds and we do have sort of a limited scope in what we're supposed to do, and our role in empowering the community through the things that the community feels is important. I understand that process is ongoing and you're still taking public input, but at least before the public input started, I think we made a real concerted effort to make sure we align and support Alex, throughout this process, and the manager, to make sure we are doing everything we can to make the process easy for you, to communicate that back to the residents. I think to your second specific question about, I think it was about Centennial Hall, recognizing that, that may or may not be a part of the use of funds ask. I think if there's an opportunity to have a conversation moving forward about that, I think we have on and off over the years, and we understand it's a large capital project. And I will say we understand the importance to the community. I think it also has significance to our guests that visit here, at least some of the different ways we could be able to use an expanded hall. And I think, well, I don't want to speak for all of us, but I'll say I believe all of us would be open to supporting Juneau in a deeper way, in a way that you need us to do that. So, and then just as Royal Caribbean Group, I think in the last month we've sponsored the performing arts event by donating a cruise. I think it was the grand prize of the event. We're supporting chamber events coming up, or different events throughout Southeast and here in Juneau. And so we're happy to do that. I think it's important for us to support the communities that we visit in the way that they want to be supported. And I think what makes Juneau unique is that we have this process where Alex brings us that list of things, and so we get to have a brighter or a larger picture of sort of what is important to the community through the assembly, and we try to support that the best way we can. And the last thing I would say is our relationships that we have with entrepreneurs, small business owners here has been very good, and we're very proud of the work that we've done to empower, to engage people, because we understand also, and we read some of the economic stresses that are happening in the community here. We understand the importance of commerce, some of the issues that have been happening with funding, the importance of affordable housing here, and certainly just quality of life issues. So if we can do more to empower business owners economically, we're more than happy to do that. And we always try to do it through the lens of authenticity and just making sure that our guests are aware of the importance of buying local, buying authentic, and just making sure we support the community economically when our folks are here on shore. So I hope that answers the question, and I look forward to having some deeper discussions about the capital project at Centennial, and I hope that we can find a way to support you.
Thank you. Mr. Morganson.
Yeah, so maybe we could always all do a better job of telling our own story and tooting our horns. And I think, that's something we talk about as an industry quite a bit. I think there's a segment of folks who, it doesn't matter what we say, they're just not going to listen to that message. They've got a different point of view, and that's fine. That's within their rights. But I don't know any port anywhere that we operate that we have 3 negotiated MOUs. There isn't one. I mean, we've done more work in Juneau in collaboration with the city, and some of you folks here, in open dialogue. And, MOA 2 and 3 basically agreed to self-restrict our businesses. And that's something that's very difficult for corporations to do in any industry, right? And we've done that because we've been good partners. We've been at the table and very supportive of things like extending the Seawalk. And some of the dock owners who are in the room, a few of them, or at least one of them, have worked hard to make that a reality as well for the community, and will be an amazing asset when it's done. And it's not just for the guests, it's for the community. We've made a lot of investments based on feedback in equipment, as I mentioned earlier, whether that be double-decker buses, because every time you have a double-decker bus, you have 1 bus instead of 2, biofuel investments, shore power, not just the existing shore power, but working when we can. We've offered our assistance at no cost to the city to help to try to secure grants or whatever we can to further electrify the 2 docks. And so, can we do more? Always, of course, but I think Juneau and the industry can be proud of, there is a lot of hard work and a lot of hard-won battles that are behind us, and a record we can be proud of. I think the other thing is, the most recent sentiment study showed a small change in the sentiment, but honestly, materially, no change in the sentiment. And there is more support for tourism out there than sometimes the rhetoric may represent. And I think that's really important when you consider Southeast Alaska's economy and the role that tourism plays. By the numbers, is now the biggest economic sector in Southeast Alaska. So some of these things will always be there, those tensions, and we remain committed to be at the table and to work through those together. But I think there is more support for tourism and for the economy than maybe is represented in some of that stuff. So that's my view.
All right, thank you. Just so you know, Ms. Atkinson has a hard deadline to leave, so if she leaves in the middle of your talking, it's nothing you said. I'm looking at my 2 new people to see if they have anything, or Mr. Bryson way down there. Ms. Hall.
Now, regarding the housing, as tourism has grown exponentially in our community, often most vulnerable are the ones first to be squeezed out of their housing due to market demand. So I'm just wondering what any of you might be doing to address the need for housing in the community, for your staff, for increased volume, or anything you can do to support agencies working with the folks that are struggling. Thank you.
I'll just go for any volunteers on that one, because I don't know if you all are doing anything there.
So
Go back to the old timer.
yeah, so we do hire a number of seasonals here in Juneau, and have had a long-standing relationship with a local seasonal hotel where we rent rooms and put those folks up. We've been in discussions with another local operator about developing a more permanent solution for housing. It's an industry problem in every community, because the reality is you cannot operate without staff that come from outside of Alaska. There's just not enough people to take the job. So there's many communities in Alaska where we have invested in housing, and we may need to do that here. So far, we've been able to get by with our seasonal solution, but like I said, we're working on something more permanent.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Kelly, did you have your hand up again?
I did. It was actually more for statements rather than questions. So if other people have questions, I'm willing to wait.
Okay, I'm looking at Mr. Bryson. Did you have a question? Mr. Smith, do you have any more questions? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I just wanted to ask about expected involvement by any of the cruise lines or maybe the association, specifically related to like local taxation issues, for instance, if a seasonal sales tax, like, do you all expect to be, advocating for a position on something like that?
So I'm going to change that wording just a little bit because I see confusions. We're looking at doing a possible seasonal sales tax increase in the summer. And his question is, are you guys going to advocate against or for that? Is that what you're saying? Mr. Benford?
Since I take the easy questions here on the, no, this may be a surprise. I don't, without knowing any specifics, I think in the broader picture, sort of understanding the need for additional resources. I think without getting into specifics about the vehicle, because I understand the Assembly has several vehicles in which you raise revenues. So without going into specifics, I do believe if there is a way through collaboration, I think that the cruise industry could help, improve the quality of life and the resources that you can provide your residents. And it could sales taxes, there's all these issues that really impact just the quality of life for people that live here. I think, as to Robert's point about, if you're one of the largest industries, I think it is imperative that we really dive deeply with you on just exploring every opportunity we can to help address through the cruise industry those issues and those hardships and those difficult parts of life. I think we all sort of owe it to ourselves, and it may be to the broader question about how we, impact the community here. Are there ways in which we could do a better job helping address some of the needs and some of the problems that are sort of dropped at the dais in front of you? I mean, I certainly think that we should do that, just my personal view, without talking about the vehicle or about the specific, piece of legislation. But we understand the pressures that people are facing here in Juneau as the community evolves. And, I think we all are proud if we're able to impact our communities in positive ways through the cruise industry. So be happy to have those conversations, or even if it's not a conversation, just a transparency to let us know what you're doing and give us some time to sort of react to it so that we can make adjustments accordingly. But I do want to explore where I can any opportunities that we can improve the quality of life here in Juneau.
Thank you. Anybody else want to touch that one?
I would speak to that,
Okay.
Madam Mayor. I don't think the industry would take a position on whether the city was choosing to implement a seasonal sales tax. And again, to the collaboration that Robert, I'm glad you really spoke to. When the city came to us and said we'd like to start charging sales tax on board, the industry worked with the city and we put together a proposal that moved forward, and that's now what's happening. Talking through that, collaborating, knowing what's coming is what we seek. We seek that the information ahead of time so that we can plan properly. And, local decisions such as that are probably not something that we're going to take a position on, but just being able to work with you and collaborate and discuss is what makes our jobs easier and what makes the jobs of these people at the seats easier to go forward and share that throughout their companies. So, thank you.
Appreciate that, and we're just looking at it this time. So although we may have a ballot initiative that also does it, so we'll see then. Mr. Bryson, did you have anything down there? Mr. Smith, did you have another one?
I just had one more.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's probably our role as the Assembly and staff to kind of figure out how to make this work, but just knowing that you all have, experience in different countries and states and cities, like, have you seen structures in other places that has led to better like community and just better alignment, I guess less tension within a community? Like, do they have community advisory boards that have members from cruise lines? Anyway, just knowing that you have, broad vision and experiences, are there any things that you've seen out there that have made reduced community tensions, like in a type of structure or other ways? Anyway, if that made sense.
Yes, Mayor.
That's a great question. And I do see a lot. I do global government relations for Norwegian Cruise Line. And I do have to say that the advancements we've made in Alaska are viewed worldwide and globally as the way to do things correctly is this collaboration that they've seen with us. And some of the things that I hear in other countries even, they use Juneau as an example. And that speaks highly of what we've done here with the MOAs, with the conversations. And this, I just want to say, this is in the last few years, kind of post-COVID environment. It is being talked about as a good example. And I mean, your TBMP, I always say that wrong.
TBMP.
Yeah, TBMP, sorry. That's held up as an example all over as well. And there's many communities that are doing something similar. And Kirby Day's name is known all over for having been implemented that. But we are seeing just areas in the world where we have seen some visitor task forces. We have some cruise line representatives that are working with the different communities. And usually there's a community liaison, there's a small municipal liaison, and then the lines. But I think in what we're doing here is groundbreaking already. That's what I see when I visit across the country.
See nothing more. Mr. Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you. And this kind of relates to the first question that was asked through the mayor by Ms. Wall. I think I liked some of what I heard. I didn't like a little bit more of what I heard. In Juneau, I think it's very much a part of our culture, stewardship of the land, stewardship of the environment. Which is why we have a pretty high per capita number of electric vehicle drivers. We're the first in the country or first in the world to electrify our docks. And so I'm kind of happy to see there is this interest towards going towards greener fuels. The date of, I think I heard the date given of 2050 because a lot of the supply lines haven't been established yet. That feels a little long for me. I think I'll probably be retired myself, hopefully, at that point. So I think it'd be the wish of a lot of members of this community to see something that's a little more accelerated, something that, I know we're just like one little community, and I just wanted to communicate that on behalf of my constituents. And I've also heard constituents talk to me kind of about the bunker fuels that are used, which meet technically regulations because the scrubbers take the particulate and prevent it from polluting the air, but then they deposit it offshore quite a ways, and then it still ends up in the water and makes all kinds of interesting colors. And so I think I'd like to kind of voice, our community's distaste for that sort of situation. I appreciate that there is some movement. I think I just would like to express that we'd probably like to see a little bit more and a little bit faster. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if any of you have anything to add since you kind of answered.
I'll add a little bit on the 2050 timeline. I hope I'm retired by then too as well. It is a long time. One thing I neglected to mention when I was speaking to the fuel issue earlier is all of shipping is regulated by the IMO, the International Maritime Organization. It's a subunit of the UN. Is over global shipping, right? So it's worldwide. And under the IMO rules today, we already are under targets to reduce carbon. So there's a variety of different schemes, and Jan Olaf even has it more complicated in Europe, where there's a number of different schemes. But just to sort of simplify it for us here, there's a measure of carbon called the carbon index, and every year you have to improve by a few percentage points, and you literally get a grade on every vessel that you operate under the IMO scheme. And so the greenhouse gas reduction isn't it'll happen when fuel happens, it's really now. And so the way that it's happening now is some of the things that Sandy talked about in terms of some of the technical enhancements. And another one is ships slowing down. And that's one of the things that port communities actually have seen, because ship arrival times have changed a bit over the years, leaving earlier, coming in later. And that is because slowing down and operating at an optimal speed reduces the CO2 greenhouse gas emissions. And so when we're doing deployment planning, this is now really one of the most significant factors in determining what ships we deploy where and what ports we can go to, and how can we slow ships down so we can optimize and lower our emissions. So through technical investments and speed, for the next several years, we will get those incremental improvements and be able to meet the international regulations. But at some point, there's a diminishing return with those kinds of changes, and so that's why the fuel issue is so important. And so the industry and really global shipping at large is working on the fuel issue now and the power units on the ships, because ultimately that's what we need. But at the same time, taking steps immediately to reduce greenhouse gas. And most of us have made, I think all of us have made marked improvements already and on a normalized basis from where we were, 5-10 years ago, whatever, like literally net less emissions. So I don't want to leave you with the idea that we're just sort of punting this problem and waiting for the fuel to show up at some point, because it's a near and present issue, and it literally drives every deployment decision we make.
Thank you.
I'll ask a quick one, it's another softball. In the past, you guys have allowed people to come in and see the inner workings of all these things that you guys are doing. I don't know the right word for it. Are you still going to allow that? And if someone wanted to see one of those, who would they talk to?
Michaela. On our side, on our region, we're happy to conduct tours. We've got 3 of our newer ships here, the Norwegian Bliss, Encore, and Joy this year that you'll be seeing. And just contact me.
And Madam Mayor, if community members are interested in doing an environmental ship tour or something like that, welcome to reach out to me. I'll send an email to this group and ask if there's anything going on, so they don't have to find these individuals' contacts directly, even though everybody in Juneau knows Michaela.
And I'm glad you spoke up, Ms. Pierce. Is there anything that the members of the Assembly should know that we haven't asked that we're just forgetting? How is the scheduling going, for instance?
Well, I would like to echo Ms. Weir's statement about eliminating hot berthing, except for one day, that we just couldn't make it work in 2026. That was a real coordinated effort, and the reason why is because Juneau and Sitka have limits, and it's very important to all parties that we adhere to those limits. I think we were both communities were pretty forceful in not wanting to sign off on days over the limit. And so it took a lot of coordination and effort. And, I think I think it's easy to say, this cruise line just needs to solve their problem. But when we have a constrained region with multiple ports and we need to look out for our neighbors, then suddenly it not only becomes a cruise line, the one cruise line's problem, but it becomes the other cruise line's problem too. And then it becomes another port's problem. And we need to figure out how to move those ships around. And, you know, the Assembly has heard me say this, the cruise lines have heard me say this a number of times, but that's really why the future of these planning conversations is regional. There's not really any room in Alaska anymore to be having community by community discussions about tourism. I mean, you can talk about tourism planning in terms of solving the problems, the annoyances, the individual issues of your community, but when you're talking about limits and capacity and deployment and what things look like 10 years from now, that needs to be a regional conversation. And, you know, we're starting to have it. And I think, you know, this effort where the cruise lines are going to every port or to multiple ports and having these meetings is a good step. We've had some joint meetings that have been a good step. And, you know, I think here on the record with a lot of people listening, we need to make a lot more of those steps and we need to start making them more quickly. So not something that the Assembly really asked about, but I think, you know, the looking outward to the region is something that we need to work on. And yeah, a little bit put on the spot. I don't think there's anything else except for that. I don't know that you called on Mr. Steininger.
He never raised his hand. Do you have a question, Mr. Steininger?
I guess I'll take that as an opportunity, though, to ask CLIAA and the representatives of the cruise lines how they feel about, you know, kind of a more regional approach to passenger limits, things like the MOAs that we have here in Juneau, you know, looking at that, a more regional approach. You know, kind of what's your take on that? How do you see this, you know, this conversation evolving?
Who wants to do that one? Mr. Benford.
Just to start off, and then maybe to piggyback on Ms. Pierce's point about sort of the regionalization, I think we've had the really the benefit of spending the entire week here in Southeast, and every single place we've been, people ask about the home ports in Vancouver and Seattle, and they ask about Juneau. That's, you know, and so I think the entire region really looks to you all to really gauge what you've done really well, you know, and such as the task force work and sort of the collaboration between the industry and the community, and then people are very curious to understand how their deployment sort of spins off of what happens here in Juneau. I mean, each community is an individual. They're all unique. Some folks, you know, have different feelings. Some folks want more. They're trying to understand how this puzzle all fits together. And certainly, I think to the extent, you know, other communities look to you, just to let you know, I think every single place we've gone, people have had, you know, just sort of mention, you know, that they look to Juneau to really try to figure out what's happening here as they plan the next, you know, 2, 5, 10 years of cruise. So, you know, I think people were paying attention, and you know, I think that's a good thing. And I think, and really, I think Juneau's always been sort of the center of cruise in Southeast, just in terms of everybody understanding the trends and you know, sort of what's happening with respect to cruise in the region. So, yeah.
Mr.
If I can add some comments, yeah, you know, we view the trade of Alaska as a whole as well. So when you look at commercial deployment planning, what vessels we're sending here, itineraries, et cetera, we look at it as a whole in other parts of the enterprise. So I think, and really through Port Communities of Alaska, which is an organization that Ms. Pierce has been spearheading, regionalizing issues makes a lot of sense. And where I think there's opportunity too is in helping some of the port communities with things that ports like Juneau have already sort of figured out, or sort of best practice sharing. And some examples might be in just infrastructure and how to deal with that as a community and how to, whether that be, financing or whatever. I think as a whole, we have very common issues across all the ports that a regional approach might be helpful for, and that is developing more opportunities for small businesses to start up shore excursions. There is not enough shore excursion capacity in the ports to satisfy the demand that is out there, and trying to help people understand what the barriers of entry are to become a tour operator and how can we help that. And I think that might be better done at a larger level than a single port issue. So I think, I'd like to see it sort of turn into how do we work together, not just on issues that come up and problems, and we all, those happen, but really more productive growth and opportunity and some of the upsides, learnings that can be shared.
Thank you. Ms. Weir.
Thank you. I'd just like to add to that one thing. I think the regional discussions are very important. We need to have those because there is one, it's the Alaska itinerary, and to me, it's similar to how we do Hawaii too. It's between all the islands, and we have to make sure there's a balance between all the islands, just like there's a balance between the ports here. I am going to add that I think also we need some new port development. There could be some places yet out here that are conducive to maybe not a large ship at first, but maybe some small ships. They kind of get there. There are some communities that are very interested in what's happening and seeing tourism as their next level of expansion. So I think we shouldn't lose sight of those, and that means more disbursement over the region as well. Nothing will replace Juneau because we know we all love Juneau on our itineraries because it sells well and people know that they went to Juneau. You have a very, very good name out in the marketing areas. So, but again, the regional conversations are important. And we also look at fuel efficiency. I just want to add that one thing because we don't want to be crisscrossing back and forth because that increases our emissions. So sometimes when we get a little bit, not we get stubborn, but our operations team gets stubborn, is like, that's too many emissions. We can't do X to Y to Z to A to, yeah. So those are considerations as well.
Right, thank you for that. Just out of total curiosity, with the things that are going on in the world today, are you guys seeing firm numbers, little soft numbers, or people are still clamoring to come to see Alaska without giving away any proprietary information?
I haven't checked the news this morning, so I may amend my answer the way things are going day to day. Kidding aside, yeah, demand is good and haven't really seen a major impact. One thing to understand about Alaska and most trades now is we're on sale 2 years in advance of the actual operating season. So the vast majority of people who book a cruise to Alaska did so before January. So, it's there's a sort of a hitch in the cycle between booking time and then the current events at the moment. So so far things look okay.
And I just was wondering, because we have had some Canadians call our offices and say, we're not coming. We love Juneau, but we're not coming. So, Mr.
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of disruption. Sorry, didn't mean to disrupt, but we have a hotel in Canada up in the Yukon, and we've seen a little bit of disruption with some of the tariff activity, and a little worried about watching, the borders and those kinds of things. But so far, no issues.
Mr. Benford?
Yes, Mayor. Our outlook remains strong. I mean, we're as Robert said, cruises book a couple years or a year in advance. So the season is going to be a great season. We're very optimistic, and our outlook is very bright about our future. I mean, there are within the business a lot of micro things that happen that we have to adjust and pivot and adapt, like we always do. We've gone through. Every single day is the reason why we're here is to sort of deal with challenges. But I think we're optimistic at Royal Caribbean Group for our future and optimistic about our future here in Juneau.
Thank you.
Yeah, same for our 3 lines. We, again, like Robert said, we were booked for Alaska probably just shortly after the election, but before the inauguration. And we have a little bit different booking policies in that you pay for your cruise, for us, 120 days out. And then the cancellation policies are not as easy perhaps as a hotel vacation because, and then also people we find are still paying for experiences and they're prioritizing experiences over other, perhaps other goods and services. They want the experiences. And we saw that after COVID and we're continuing to see it.
Thank you.
I can comment on that. The Norwegian Prime Minister has a meeting with President Trump at the moment, so everything will be okay. Jokes aside, as mentioned here, the sales for our cruise is in 2026, and we can see now that the sales for next year's itinerary here is very good. We also see that Alaska has its name on its own, so it doesn't necessarily have any effect regarding what's happening in the USA, because Alaska is quite strong on itself.
Yes, we like to think so. So anyway, before I pass it back to Mr. Smith to adjourn, just thank you all for coming. We appreciate the conversation. It's, as you know, we struggle with the great economic benefit we get from tourism. And my personal thing is I think it brings some vibrancy to downtown, definitely, with the impacts on the locals. So we appreciate your, someone said, your journey with us. We do appreciate the fact that our negotiated agreements are unique worldwide, and all of you that have helped with that, we truly appreciate that. We have made progress, but we obviously know we all have little work to do at all times. So again, thank you for coming. And with that, we'll send it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very nicely done. Thank you all for coming and having this conversation with us, bringing concerns, solutions out into the open, having these discussions in public. So thank you for that. Look forward to more. As the mayor said, I think we're all doing a lot, but we all know we have more work to do. So thanks for embarking on that journey with us. Madam Manager, we do not have staff comments or supplemental materials. Very good. At 1:27, we are adjourned.